welcome to the show. And it's the first episode of the show, What Will Happen? And here with me is Mr. Jamil Ahmed Khan. We will be discussing geopolitics and its implication from east to west, and Pakistani local politics, and what the economic situation is. Myself will be hosting it. My name is Khurram Hussain, and our expert and analyst is Mr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, who has a vast background in diplomatic and services with United Nations and representing his country of Pakistan as ambassador. So, Mr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, welcome to the show. What will happen?
Thank you very much for having me in this very exciting time and with the exciting title of the program.
Yes, so as you know, what we will be doing in the show will be trying to judge and find out what will be happening for normal people and the countries in these uncertain times of pandemic. So we will begin with, as our focus will be Southeast Asia and Pakistan in all of our discussion. So I will put up some reckoning question like what happened between China and India in Ladakh, and muscle flexing of China, not only with India, but also with US, which has a geopolitical and geostrategic situation, and where the Pakistan sit in all this scenario. So coming up with the latest development after Ladakh, we know what happened in Ladakh. To summarize, it was India could not even save its face from what happened, and US did not come to India's rescue at all. So after its moral defeat, at least, and losing a lot of land, important piece of land of its territory, what do you think, what is India thinking about, and what are options for India left in this situation?
Very good question. In fact, options for left, one could visualize what options are left with India, and particularly with the government, which is headed by Modi, very radical government. So yes, basically, let's have a quick overview of what actually happened. We have discussed in our last program also about how the Chinese post was dismantled by Indians, and then Chinese retaliated, came into the territory of India, quite a bit of territory they secured, and then finally India had to recede from their forward post, which was the bone of contention basically. And after suffering about 23 soldiers' death, including a lieutenant colonel who was the battalion commander. So that's a quick wrap up. Why India had taken this kind of an initiative of initiating this advancement? There are various factors for that. We have to have in our mind that India is a very strong ally in this entire South Asian country, rather in Asia and in the Indian Ocean territory, very strong ally of the United States. And United States basically has its competition with China. Now it's an economic competition, it's geopolitical competition, which turn into a geostrategic competition. And geostrategic, obviously, for your viewer, obviously geostrategic include the military component of the deployment, armed with the political maneuvers, geopolitical maneuvers, and geoeconomic maneuver. So China, as we all know, that China has really gone very strong so far as the economic side is concerned, and now China has further augmented its economic strength with its geopolitical strength. And once I say geopolitical strength, I mean that China has been able to have an ingress and cooperation, MOU, and in certain cases, agreement with about over 100 countries in various parts of the world: Eastern Europe, Africa, Middle East, South Asia, and Asia as a whole. So once they have mustered the cooperation through the MOUs and through the agreements, and that is basically on the Chinese master plan chart, which is BRI, Belt and Road Initiative. And Belt and Road Initiative, quickly, if I could wrap it up by saying that the most important, one of the most two important component of the BRI, which is the Belt and Road, which is also known as OBOR. OBOR means One Belt, One Road concept. So the most important component of that entire about $4 trillion project of China, a very ambitious project. They have already spent about $1 trillion, and that's how they have harnessed their political, geopolitical strength in that. Now, as I was saying, that the most important segment of that entire project is the CPAC. And that CPAC, obviously, Pakistan has the flagship project of the CPAC, and it passes through through Pakistan territory. And that's how Pakistan automatically becomes part of this geopolitical network, and which is transforming into geostrategic deployment. Obviously, whether our previous policies were in line with the world emerging situation or not, that is a different subject altogether. But at this point in time, whatever is happening around us and whatever is happening around the globe, our geopolitical and geostrategical position, it lies with the bloc, China, Russia, the SCO bloc. SCO means Shanghai Cooperation Bloc, and ECO bloc, which is the Economic Cooperation Organization, which was established by Turkey, Iran, and Pakistan, and there are about 11 countries in it. And SEO, which is Shanghai Cooperation.
Coming back to Ladakh, we did not. India is a new ally of US. And it's said that animosity with US is okay, but friendship with US is can be lethal, in words of Ayub Khan, the former US, also former Pakistani president and dictator. But we see that in this whole conflict, we did not see engagement of US in support of India as expected. Not in terms of diplomacy. There was not. At a later stage, Pompeo said few things about Ladakh, but they didn't directly engage in any sort of diplomatic pressure on China in favor of India. That was seen, nor any military maneuvering was seen in favor of India. Their news came up that they have moved their fleet of aircraft carriers to South China Sea, but Ladakh and South China Sea are miles and miles apart, and there is a big piece of land. So those aircraft carriers were pretty much useless, if not symbolic. Symbolic or useless. So what do you say? Like, why didn't US came out as a really, if US consider India its ally?
Your question and comment, it gives impression to your viewer, I guess, and I, to some extent, also get the same impression. And please modify it if the impression is different, that why US did not openly have an intervention or support for the India. The question is that in the present day warfare, which involves complete space is included in it, the land is included, the sea is included, and the air is included. But more importantly, the cyber warfare, which is really having a very strong trajectory in terms of development. And why Americans did not really directly and openly support that? According to the information, they have started providing them a lot of further armaments and the military equipment and technology. Further, they have augmented that support, right? And in terms of the tank pieces, in terms of the aircraft pieces, in terms of the components, in terms of the technical know-how of assembly, all those things are going on. The fact of the matter is that whatever they get from the United States, if the viewer gets an impression that United States could have sent their troops there, they, at this point in time, in my calculation and in my analysis, they would not do that mistake, because
an open diplomatic support from White House.
Yeah, open diplomatic support in the current time, once the election is just about few months away, Trump's election. So if they give the open diplomatic support or the political support, they have to augment it with their physical support also. If they don't do it, they'll start losing face with their allies. Now, the other question is, are they giving covert support to India? The indicators are yes, they are giving covert support. Was India expecting an overt support? The answer is yes, based on my analysis. India and the population of India as a whole were expecting an overt support from United States. In the present day world, where the the countries are nuclear, and countries are armed up to their teeth, like China and US and their allies, they would avoid creating an impression of an muscle flexing, which could have a flash of the war, the full-fledged battle or war. So they would avoid that to its last limit. To my analysis, or to my understanding, in the coming several years, no country can afford to reach to that flash point where they could get into a full-fledged war, because it can start, but no one would know. It's a mutual destruction of the entire, all those countries and their allies. So therefore, they would not do it. So what they could have done it? Yes, India had to fight it on ground, and US had to give us support. You're right, diplomatic support. India has a very weak ground to ask for the diplomatic support. And diplomatic support means there are certain countries, they should give some support to India. Yes, US allies like NATO, the ambassador of US in NATO, from the platform of NATO, he has already given us a very statement, which is a sort of a supportive statement to India. Yes, what India could have done? India could have asked the support of the Security Council, where the United States has the dominance because of the three veto power. And this bloc, Russia, China, and their allies like Pakistan, Iran, Turkey, and the Central Asian countries and other countries, they have only two veto power, means China, Russia. So any resolution which is tabled, for example, for Ladakh, what resolution could have been tabled? The resolution could have been tabled that India, the Chinese have intruded, Chinese have violated the international boundaries, Chinese have violated the sovereignty of India. This was the cause. They could have gone into, taken their point to the Security Council. But the question then is, Indians are not bloody fool. They understand that they have a very weak case at that platform of international diplomatic platform, or international platform, that is Security Council, from where they could have some decision and they could implement it by force also. So they did not go there. Why they did not go there? Because there are Security Council resolutions that India could not have done any alteration in the disputed land. Ladakh is a disputed land according to Security Council resolution. So India, once they passed their, abrogated the constitutional provision of 370, Indian Constitution of 370 article, and in Kashmir 35A, they already altered and violated international law. Because of the American support, they survived, and they were not really asked as much, or the Security Council could not be moved for that to really implement Chapter 7 for and push Indian off from the initiative what they had taken. So this is a very quick background why diplomatic support could not be given to India, and why India did not move the resolution in Security Council. So that means India, because of Hindutva mindset, they had done that alteration in their constitution, and they must have now been given advice by their international legal diplomatic experts that if they go into Security Council, even while they have three veto powers, they'll not be able to gain anything because there are other members also. So therefore they did not. And therefore Americans could not openly give that support because it was a losing battle. Now, so far as this question is concerned, I tried to just give various answer through various angles and through the legal diplomatic angle also. Now let's come over what other maneuvering and what other postures, geopolitical postures are being made. As we know, and your viewer would also know, that in the Indian Ocean, the Americans have the heaviest deployment of last several decades. So they have a deployment of their warships, they have other submarines, the other military assets. India, first time, has given their territory as the naval base, and naval base under the excuse of logistic base to Americans in Gujarat, and giving them the access to refuel and to bring their aircrafts and repair, maintenance, and of course all military activities and military maneuvering could be done from there.
So which is rolling back a long-standing Indian policy of no foreign soldier boots on Indian soil since its independence, and they have violated that or broken that or moved away from that principle.
Very much so.
Which is a troubling sign for the region, and maybe India wants to use all the options in its designs, which are aggressive. That's why, as you said, they were not able to present it in the unit. Whatever happened in Ladakh, they could not bring it to the UN Security Council, right?
That's right. And then your question, the other part of your question, which I have yet to address, because your question was so strategic in nature that I couldn't make justice to your to give answer in just few lines. That's why I've taken that much time to cover various angles. Now, what option was the second part of your question? What option Indians have? One can analyze and visualize. The Indians at this point in time have to resort to a passive posture and try to strike some kind of a deal, which they have done with Chinese by giving them the territory to Chinese. And now they are trying to regroup themselves, because they are not going to sit idle. If one feels that Indians are going to sit idle now, no, because they are part of the allies and they also have their own interest. And now the public opinion has also been emerged and mobilized by other parties in India and by the think tanks and by the civil societies, that what way India has lost in this particular adventure which they tried to do on the behest of United States. And there is a lot of criticism going on by independent writers in India. So you are right, this is against their very long strategy that they would not allow any other foreign entities or country to have their boots on ground. So you are right. The options which India now has is to make a very aggressive preparations. To my calculation, India is going to enhance its budget. India has a very good excuse now to ask Americans to further augment and transfer the technology earlier than later, and also provide them other assets, military assets, which is going on as we are talking.
Don't you think it's a lost battle, considering China, which is a over $20 trillion economy, and considering India, which is $2 trillion economy? It's like 10 times. The population-wise, they're very similar, but their economy sizes are 10 times different. Plus, India in his neighborhood has Pakistan, which long-standing disputes with Pakistan and aggression, which both of them claiming each other. But India is so big compared to Pakistan. Its relation with Bangladesh are not so good. Even Nepal these days seems to be very angry with India. Where if you see, it's totally dependent on India, and at a certain point Nepal seemed to be a client state of India, the way India was controlling Nepal. But right now we see very strong statements coming out of Nepal condemning Indian moves and Indian policies on Nepal. So So do you think
See,
India in next 10, 15 years even can stand up against China?
oh, India is trying hard, and you can't rule out the possibility. The way they have entered into the defense pact with the United States, if United States is forthcoming, which they are going to, because they will go to the last limit to block Chinese geopolitical and geostrategic growth in the region and beyond, around the globe. So to that extent, any government coming in the next election in the United States, they would follow their foreign policy to check China, to surpass the influence of the United States, which according to the calculation would go on for several years, obviously more than decades, according to certain reports by the financial institutions, that the United States is going to have its dollar domination for another about 25 years, which according to my analysis, it is going to be much lesser than that. But having that in mind, the dominance of the United States, any forthcoming president would like to maintain that. And in order to do that, they will keep supporting China, keep supporting India. And in order to support India, they'll have to strengthen India. In order to strengthen India, they'll have to give them a diplomatic as well as military support to them. So therefore, India would keep preparing for itself. Your other part, the first part of your question, that means India has already lost. Well, it's too early to say that. India would keep trying, because they are increasing their budget every year very hugely, military budget. And second is so far as the economic maneuvering is concerned, or economic war is concerned, of course, China is the winner. China is a $17 trillion economy. China is #1 country around the world, around the globe, so far as the manufacturing is concerned. China is again #1 country so far as trading is concerned in the world. So economically, yes, but
and
remember,
technologically, it's leading the way for artificial intelligence and 5G as well. So
they're making very good progress, I must say that. And the
so more
testimony,
so that even US is afraid right now. They're sanctioning Chinese companies in order to try to stop their fast progress in technological fields like AI and 5G.
no, there's no denial of that fact. But the Americans would definitely like to check that. But again, I would quote that the envoy of United States, who is there in NATO, and he says that China and Russia together, they are weaponizing the cyberspace, and they are weaponizing because US should not be able to make any intervention in the region, and that's why they are weaponizing their space. And what does it mean? The Chinese definitely have enhanced their research and development so far the space is concerned, and they have invested a lot, Chinese and Russians. So yes, US is now worried about it. It seems to be very worried
now,
about it.
now we have moved to China-US relationships and China, their attempt for their dominance towards world politics, economics, and trade. So considering this aspect that we see a tug of war between China and US, and China wants to emerge as the new superpower, same as US or greater than US, which is obvious. And as you said, dollar is the kingpin of that US dominance globally. Lately, there has been a very different kind of development, which was quid pro quo sanctioning between China and US. We know that US have been sanctioning everywhere, everyone, including China. US has sanctioned everything for China, which is not against their own interest. They could not sanction manufacturing of goods in China immediately, because a lot of their own companies are manufacturing in China, and from Walmart to Target, every store is full of Chinese products, and those products will be gone, and there's no alternative to the world for those products. So they don't want to affect everyday's life. and they are letting it slide till Vietnam, South Korea, India, and their other allies can pick up that battle. And China, on the other hand, is trying to develop one belt and one road and find new markets for its product and new trade routes. But in this whole tug of war we see that right now they are sanctioning each other. So US sanctioned Chinese official, not the Chinese trade. US sanctioned so far Chinese companies like Huawei and ZTE, some other small and big companies, but this time this sanctions Chinese officials on some grounds, and China hit back with the sanctions on US leaders. So Iran sanctioning some US leaders is a matter of no concern, nobody think about it. But when China, with its economic clout, sanctions entities, maybe people or companies, it's a big deal, because Apple was really afraid to teeth that China will, in retaliation, will sanction Apple in China. And Apple's biggest market is China, not US anymore. So it didn't happen. Maybe China is using it as leverage. But this quid pro quo sanctioning, can it lead to a faster dollar demise and some war or economic and cyber war going to an extent where China says, okay, this is it, we are not trading with you anymore?
That's right. In such movement and such trade maneuvering, it takes a while because there is a transition involved in it. For example, if one component of Apple is being made in China, although many components are being made in China, for example, just for hypothetically speaking, if
and
one item is being
in China as well, complete assembly.
Yeah, and its assembly is China. So the transition would take time to bring it to some other country. The manpower, the human resource training, and the viability of those components. So from a needle to an aircraft, Chinese are involved in making those components. So that transition, America cannot make it overnight. So what I would say, the US decision on trade war is the knee-jerk decision. Like Indians, they have done the radical decision in Kashmir and Ladakh, and that's why they had to face that embarrassment. And the knee-jerk decision, which has been made by United States, the first sufferer for that, immediate sufferer for that are the US citizens, because the dollar stores would evaporate. As you said, the Walmart, as you said, all the Chinese goods which flooded everywhere and giving you the access to low-income people or the middle-income people, unless America comes with a package to a huge population, about 200 million people or even more, who are just middle-class people or around that. So unless they come with the package, and they can't really, they are already in their deficit of budgeting. So unless they do that, from where, how would they do the transition? People won't be able to survive because they won't be able to buy the goods and services at the affordable price. And if they can't do it at the affordable price, then they would be on the roads agitating against their own government. So it's not so easy to do the knee-jerk decision and sustain that. Like the Hindutva mindset of the Indian government, they took that decision to show their eyes to the Chinese, and they had to face the embarrassment. They took a decision in Kashmir, now they are facing the embarrassment. They took a decision to influence Nepal and Bhutan, now they're facing the problem. So knee-jerk decision and radical decisions do not really yield the immediate benefits. So the question is that dollar, how soon, because the entire world trade and the world economy and world financing services are still dollar-based services. And this takes me to the recent agreement, which is going to be signed very soon, and the previous agreement of Iran with China, which is about $400 billion. They are going to mostly do it on bartering basis and bilateral basis, but it's again not very easy. And the United States have already said, the Treasury Department has already said, that those Chinese companies who are involved in this $400 billion projects with Iran, we will start sanctioning them. So again, your question crops up: would that sanction work, or would that sanction not work? It would work if the Chinese companies are also having their interest in the financial system of the dollar-based financial system in the United States or elsewhere. So yes, quite a few companies of Chinese are doing their dollar-based financial trading, because they really can't have the border trading everywhere. So I think the transition is going to take place, and it's yet to too early to say that it's going to just evaporate very soon. According to the Swiss-based experts and the financial services, it says 25 years. My analysis says that it is certainly more than a decade, and China has a time on their side to keep growing, both militarily, both in their cyberspace, but then the military might of China and US, they still have a gap of about 10 years to reach to that level. Comparing apple to apple and orange to orange.
Okay, so
Orange and orange.
this brings us to China-Iran partnership and its comparison drawn with CPAC, which is Pakistan and China partnership. So these partnerships, like we know, One Belt, One Road initiative, it's part of CPAC, and both this agreement are part of OBOR of China, which is a domination strategy of China for this century, pretty much, and they are putting all their eggs in this bucket. Pretty much all their eggs are in OBOR bucket for the world domination in next 100 years. So their CPAC has become a local political point in Pakistan, and all the Pakistani politicians are in opposition, especially are comparing this $400 billion China-Iran agreement with the CPAC, which is a $50 billion agreement. And they're saying that China has given up on Pakistan or CPAC, and they don't want to rely on Pakistan, and that's why they are bringing Iran on board, and Chabahar will be the dominant port. And this is directly coming from the circles in opposition, especially PML Nawaz. This is a narrative being sold right now all over social media and by their second tier, third tier leadership. So can you give us some major points, what China-Iran $400 billion agreement is, and how we can compare it with CPAC? And is there any fact to the matter that it's replacement of CPAC China with Iran-China partnership?
Okay, the answer is no to CPAC China partnership. Answer is no to the other aspect, that would it the Chabahar replace Gwadar? I'll come with my arguments on that. And the answer to our political mileage, what they are taking, the opposition in Pakistan, again, it is devoid of any technical argument, right? So I would say it's just naive thinking, or it's just a thinking which is not based on argument. So and the technical.
What are the major components of $400 billion China?
That's right. Correct. Okay. So these were the basic broad aspects of the answer to your question. Now let me justify it one by one. First, the components and the features of the agreement. First of all, the agreement is that of 2016. Once President Xi Jinping, it was January 2016, Xi Jinping and the Iranian president had signed their agreement, which was a cooperation agreement, intelligence cooperation, and some of the defense cooperation, some of the components, and very few economic ingredients in it. That has been revised, that's being revised, yet to be signed and updated. So everything has been done already. And in the process, Iran has not given the contract to Indian company for the railway track, and Chabahar also. The Indians have been shown a green flag from there. So, but let me first stay on that point. What are the components? It's 400, there's 25 years spread of $400 billion in the field of petrochemical, that's top on the line. And here I must also indicate that the petrochemical, that is the nerve line of the Chinese. China needs energy and the guaranteed energies, and that can be choked anytime with the existing military deployment in the Indian Ocean by the US and its allies, as I had already indicated about the heavy deployment. So let me first describe the features, and if there is any correlation, I'll draw that correlation also. So that is a petrochemical. Petrochemical, Iran, all its petrochemical, the first right of refusal is Chinese company, meaning thereby if Chinese do not buy it, then any other firm of the world can give the bid for it. So that means for next 25 years, Chinese are securing their oil supply from Iran. So that's number one component. In the process, they are going to develop all the oil fields and the exploration and the existing oil fields improvement, plus the transportation, the infrastructure required in general. So infrastructure, transportation, and petrochemical, they are the four major components of the economic side. And
I think a rail network as well.
No, but then yet there is yet an important thing to come in my argument, and that is to me, in order to have the protection to the first three components, which I just described in the forthcoming agreement, the military cooperation and the defense agreement, because unless they have that, the Chinese cannot give protection to Iran or protection to its investment in Iran, for example, right? So the defense agreement is the most important, defense cooperation and intelligence. And then so much so that the weapon development, meaning thereby you'll soon find the weapon industries of Chinese in Iran, which is good for Iran because Iran is being marginalized by the US, not only sanctioned, but US deployment also. See, their chief has been killed through a drone attack. And then there could be many more to come, and their nuclear site has been got the explosions, which Iran is blaming on the external forces. So all those things bearing in mind, and with this defense cooperation coupled with the other things which I've just mentioned, like a petrochemical and the infrastructure and the transport, this is going to be a very comprehensive strategic and economic agreement. And obviously, US should be quite worried about it because US wants its dominance in this entire region, particularly state of Hormuz, which is right touching the borders and boundaries, water boundaries of Iran. And Iran is sitting
So
right over
all the oil which China plans to buy from Iran, it will be passing through Pakistan to China. There's no other viable route.
Very much so. At the moment, very much so, because in the CPEC route, we also have the pipeline, the oil pipeline. So ultimately, the oil pipeline would also be laid, and all the oil which Chinese are going to buy from here, the ships would be brought naturally. It would be brought to Gwadar, and from Gwadar, it pumps all the oil to the Chinese territory, safe and sound, absolutely protected, because through the sea, through the ship, they are going to have two advantages. One advantage is a strategic advantage, that it's a protected oil supply. Second advantage is it used to take them 5 to 6 weeks for a ship to maneuver from Strait of Hormuz and this area and Gulf of Aden to the South China Sea and the Beijing and onward, right? Now, with this pipeline, within a week's time, they would have the oil in their own country, right? And safe and secure. So from that angle, this is quite an important strategic and beneficial agreement for both the countries, Iran. Pakistan has no problem with it because it further augments Pakistan's CPEC in a way that the oil would be passing through the opposition in Pakistan is trying to make an argument that alternate route is being built. If the alternate route is being built through the Kabul and through other means which initially was planned with the trilateral agreement, India, Afghanistan, and Iran, right? That cannot be implemented anymore now because most of it was MOUs, and there was hardly any binding in it at that point in time. That's why Indian again made a very strategical mistake while they lost the railway track contract, and that was a strategic in nature also, and of course followed by the Chabahar. So basically, Indians had refused that because of the sanction, they will not be able to invest their money at this point in time, and Iran got a very good argument at that point to invite
Chinese.
Chinese, and now Chinese would take care
So
about it.
basically, India has lost all of its investment in Chabahar and Chabahar to Helmand Road, which they constructed all across Iran to Afghanistan. So that
Very much so.
investment is pretty much lost.
And that is a strategic loss also, which India was thinking that instead of passing through Pakistan and Wagah, their trade and relation with Afghanistan and Central Asian country, they would be able to use this alternate route. So that is also lost to them. Not only that, India being the strong allies, it's a loss to United States also. Now, if the defense agreement, which is going to be signed in coming days, and all this for $400 billion agreement is signed, then this bloc would become even further strategically important and significant, which
So
means
what are the components of that defense agreement? Like attack on Iran will be considered an attack on China, or just
it's not like NATO. It's not like NATO at this point in time, because if it's like NATO, then it will start having a lot of hiccups at this point in time. So therefore they have done it in the name of it. It is indirectly the same thing. They have done it in the name of defense cooperation, intelligence gathering, defense cooperation, and this defense cooperation is a wide spectrum agreement, right? And what are the nitty-gritty ingredients in it? They have not shared it at this point in time with the world, and the two sovereign countries can keep it secret, their thing, and if they wish, they can announce it at later stages, that what are the ingredients of that defense cooperation. It could have what you are saying, it could have that very ingredient and component in the agreement. But at this point in time, it has not been come on surface that it is done.
so
But to me, it's indirectly the same.
So with this relationship of China and Iran getting stronger, and Pakistan seems to be on the good side of that relationship as well, what Pakistan's next step should be to cement its relationship with Iran and be the good beneficiary of all these new development, and pose a definitive posture to India, which India is continuously posing threats to Pakistani interests, from water to the trade. So what Pakistan next 5 years moves and diplomatic engagement should be to further strengthen this position economically, especially, and diplomatically as well?
Do the transition, smooth transition, as they are doing, as Pakistan is doing already. It's a very smart and smooth tradition from the American-based trades to the Chinese and trade on the basis of ECO, Economic Cooperation Organization members, and the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization members. So this bloc by itself start doing the transition, because we have still a lot of components of our defense which is American based, because we've been relying on them last about 60 years or so. So therefore, it will take some time for this transition. Now we have almost reached to a very close level of sustainability of not really depending on all the American components and equipment and military weapons. So we have done the transition, and we have our own Camera, and we have our own F-70.
But
GF-17.
what about our fragile economy and indebted economy? We have now $115.
That is our vulnerability, and it's a huge vulnerability which we have. But with these geopolitical movement and geostrategical movement, we have to really work hard to enhance our goods and services. In fact, the kind of damages which has been caused to Pakistan industry over a period of last 3 decades, and particularly last about 10, 15 years, that is huge, as a matter of fact. And unless we are able to enhance our goods, a production of goods and services, if you have something only, then you can sell it. So you have, first you have to have those things to sell it and enhance your export. We cannot only depend on the CPAC and the toll tax only and run our country. So that is one, that's where we are quite vulnerable. And this vulnerability has to be
But we cannot
overcome.
manufacture any goods and services unless we have skilled laborers and labor which can compete with those
So
like China. And we are lacking there in a huge way. So our human index is really low. Our human education index is low. We are our high-tech education, number of people in high-tech education as percentage of populations is very low. So do you think the Pakistani government or Imran Khan government is doing anything in this regard right now?
Pakistani government have started trying to. I won't say that they have reached to that level at this point in time. You see, you have very rightly pointed out about the level of our skill and education. First of all, we never had the skill-based education in our country, particularly last 30 years or so, right? So that, what does it mean? The vocational training centers, what has been open, it was just for namesake. Only last about a couple of years, they have started focusing on it, but they are quite far away from the actual startup position of these vocational training. Now, what does it mean? All these economic zones which we are making, special economic zone with the collaboration of Chinese and as a part of the CPAC, would need skilled labor. And my presentation, various platforms were that we don't have those skilled labor. What is going to then happen? The skilled labor has to be brought from other parts, that is Philippines, Nepal, or China, and even Punjab. And once the skilled labor from Punjab is being deployed in Balochistan, there is already a very fragile feeling, and because of fifth generation war.
Here's my question when it comes to the conflicts and insurgent activities in Balochistan. Balochistan total population is hardly 10 to 12 million people, half of which is Balochi speaking and rest half is about Pashtun speaking. These people are not enough considering the amount of CPAC projects which are being engaged. So as long as these people are skilled, do you see any problem for these people to find job? The problem happens when you're not a skilled and you see the people are coming to my land. Yeah, people are coming to your land because you're not doing that job. So I have a personal experience of that back in 2004. I'll explain some other day. But do you think there is some development in this regard in your information and knowledge?
In fact, technically you are right that they are not that skilled, and technically it will take them several years to make them skilled to that level. But there are some crash programs whereby they can be made skilled, depending what trade and what particular technology. Trade and technology, it all depends on that. So they can be transformed. My reservation of all the preceding governments and the present government is that the effort which is needed and the strong effort which is needed in this direction, not only for the vocational training, but a political backup with that, because we are already victim of the fifth generation war in Pakistan, and that is focused and directed to Balochistan, particularly because of India. So because of RAW. So we have to do vocational training with under the very huge political efforts and political umbrella. So if we do that, then we'll have the satisfaction of the people. As you said, there are very 10, 11 million people in Balochistan and having the area equal to other 3 provinces. So from that angle, I would say that it is possible for the early harvest like we did it in CPAC. So early harvest of the manpower and early harvest of the highly skilled people like yourself and the people sitting in various part of the world our overseas Pakistanis. You are very right. We have been spending only about less than 2% of the budget of Pakistan in education. So education-wise, we are not very good. But at the same time, we have top about 5 to 10% people who could be motivated and their talents could be utilized at the initial phase of 4 or 5 years, till the time we are able to, through a structured planning, we are able to train the other skilled people for the CPAC and for the other improvement which is going on, so that we are able to develop our goods and services, our industries, our IT, our all other fields from where we can improve our
So
economy. This was your
we
question.
have reached the last 2 minutes of our program, and in this segment, we always ask a question: what will happen? As the name of our show. The last question is: where do you see the economy, or globally, and Pakistani economy going in next 2 years? And what will we be? What ways somehow they can be shifted to better, considering this global pandemic?
We already had our debt to GDP ratio, which had crossed about 94%. So we had a dismal position in our country, and COVID has further hit us. A brighter aspect for the time being is that our debt servicing has been given some time and postponed to up till December. And my understanding is that the G20 country are going to further postpone it, and IMF is going to further postpone it. But after all, we have to pay at some stage. So we'll have to start a crash program to enhance our income as a whole in our country, whether it's through the tax collection, whether it's through the goods and services export, enhancement of export, and of course, through our bilateral agreements with various countries. So we have to do that. We are in a very bad state. Regarding your solid answer to the question is that yes, our economies will further recede, but the point which we could be confident of, Pakistan is a very resilient nation. I think they will be able to sail through this difficult time, and the brighter future, I can say it, in the forthcoming time. So therefore, although we have a difficult economic situation, but the geopolitical
that brings us to like 3 points. That a couple of things which are in favor of Pakistan is huge decrease in the current account deficit. And do you think the governance has improved and the corruption has come down, which is also helping the overall economy?
Yes, definitely. Comparative corruption reduction is there, so that helps. But at the moment, the stabilization period is there. The improvement period we have yet to see.
So this goes to the credit of the Imran Khan government that, in your opinion and opinion of other people as well, that corruption has come down. So do you think this will help Imran Khan government to sustain complete 5 years and maybe have another 5 years? Or
it appears, but the corruption reduction at the grassroots level has to be implemented. It is not. So far, the grassroots level corruption in the bureaucracy, in all of the departments, it's happening. The mega corruption definitely has reduced hugely. Previously the plundering and the looting, what was going on, that you would not see it at this stage. Although Imran Khan team, some of them they try, but Imran Khan has an eye, and he himself has not been so far maligned of any mega corruption. So therefore, it appears that the culture of corruption which was there previously is now not seen, and therefore the corruption, it is reduced at the mega level, but at the grassroots level, the governance system has further to be improved so that the grassroots corruption is also reduced and a common person is able to reap the fruit of it, like police and like revenue department and like other departments. Yes.
On this positive note, I'll thank you, Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, for your time and deep analysis into the geopolitical and Pakistani local politics. So with this, me, Khurram Hussain, would like to say see you off, our viewers, for this show. We'll come back with another show next Sunday. And once again, thanks for watching us. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And the name of our channel is What Will Happen. And thanks again, Dr. Jamil, once again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.